Art is a hard thing to judge because it is subjective. Art is a hard thing to judge because it is unique to itself. Art is a hard thing to judge because it is never perfect. Helluva Boss is a show that is so conflicting to me. As a creator and artist, I have such a hard time analyzing this show. On one hand, it has inspired me with its incredible art and animations. There are cuts in the show that genuinely floor me with how impressive they are. The music is well made, characters are all unique and memorable, and the show's voice acting is out of this world good. On the other hand, though, the show is home to some of the most frustrating writing I have ever seen. Its characters seem to be unable to grow or face any hardship and constantly flounder in this pool of trauma and drama that gets harder and harder to watch. The show has a serious problem that I will refer to as the gap. The gap is the difference between expectation and potential versus reality or current skill level. This gap is mainly pointed at in the art community as something that causes art block, which is, as an artist, one of the most frustrating things you can come up against. It can make your work feel bad or poorly put together. But to have this feeling on the scale of an episodic animated TV show with millions of fans, it's easy to see why the show is so polarizing. To preface before I continue, I want to say that I will express opinions and speculate on why problems I have with the show exist. Please do not take anything I say as a personal attack on the creators of the show or on yourself for enjoying it. You are well within your right to love and enjoy the show despite its many flaws. The reason I'm making this video is because I have such a sincere love for it. I also want to say that you are completely valid to hate on it. The show has flaws, and I can understand disliking it because of that. However, please do not go around hating on the show and trying to convince other people that your perception of the show is the objective and true way to view it. This is something I've been guilty of in other fan bases, and it never leads to anything productive or good. If you have differing opinions, please share them with me in the comments, though. I would love to talk through them with you. With that disclaimer out of the way, it is undeniable to me that Helluva Boss has flaws. Every piece of media does. So, now we need to figure out why the flaws of this show are so detrimental and important. We know the flaws lie mainly in the writing, which is one of the most important pieces of any story. Specifically, though, we're looking at character growth and interactions. In a character-based story, where drama between two or more characters is what drives the narrative, it is imperative to have good dialogue and character progression. I personally think Helluva Boss lacks these qualities. For example, we're going to look at Blitz, the main character of the series. We know that he is a very flawed and traumatized character who has a tendency to lash out at other people who care about him to prevent himself from getting hurt in another relationship. This is objectively bad behavior because it's causing him to be lonely and actively harming any relationships that he may have already established. As the show has gone on, Blitz has broken down and realized that he is the bad guy in these situations many a time. In theory, he should begin to take steps to address this problem in his life and the trauma that caused it. However, instead of doing that, we've seen him enter this rut of character growth because he keeps breaking down and making this realization, but never making any legitimate progress towards bettering himself. To showcase what I mean, here are all of the episodes he breaks down in.
What happened?
No, don't touch me! I destroy everything, everyone! I make everyone's lives worse! They'll shove away anyone who gets too close until they resent you for being a selfish, shitty shit.
Fuck, Fizz was right. I'm gonna die alone, aren't I? Just a wrinkly, old, weathered waste. You're right. I actually am, sorry. I don't want to be this way. Not forever.
Okay, you're right, it was all my fault, okay? I should have done more to help. I was trying. There was so much going on. I was trying to get help, Fizz.
It was still my fault.
His inability to grow after experiencing a moment like this is frustrating to me. It also invalidates or makes future emotional moments with him feel less validated or earned because he has already done this, and I am now learning as the viewer that this big emotional moment will amount to nothing because in the end, he won't change his behavior. One of his big lines in Season 2 is, "I don't want to be like this forever," which gives me a sense of hope that he will change eventually, but I haven't seen any reason to believe that outside of that line. Even his actions in the same episode, Apology Tour, showcase how egotistical he still is. The apologies he gives to everyone else are half-hearted because he selfishly only wants to apologize to Stolas. But to soften the blow that would be to his ego, he apologizes to everyone else first. This gives him an out to feel like a good person regardless of the outcome of Stolas' response to his apology, which Stolas never receives. So then, we need to figure out why he keeps breaking down. In my mind, there are two reasons. The first is based on episode scheduling. Over the past 5 years, Helluva Boss has produced 20 full-length episodes that come out to 4 episodes on average per year, with a 3-month gap between each episode. I assume that because of the large amount of time between episodes, the writers want every episode to have a serious emotional moment to make that episode feel more important or justified based on the wait time. I think that is a perfectly valid thing to do. Other shows pull this off regularly. Shows like The Lincoln Lawyer, White Collar, Jujutsu Kaisen, Arcane, and Dandadan. All of these shows include a major cliffhanger or emotional moment in each episode. This is typically referred to as the hook, and these provide a reason to stick around for the next episode. Clearly, having this standard is not the sole reason the show ends up feeling repetitive, because other teams can pull off this concept well. So now we need to look at my second idea, which is a more realistic progression pattern. To show what I mean, let's take a look at My Hero Academia Season 2. In My Hero Season 2, the big climactic battle is between two students, Deku, the main character, and Todoroki, a supporting character. Todoroki is introduced to us earlier in the show as this edgy character who has an abusive father who he hates. He has the power of both fire and ice manipulation, which is very strong, but he only ends up using the ice part of his power because he rejects his father, who gave him the fire part. This rejection, though morally justified, is holding him back from his growth because he cannot fight to his fullest. His hatred for his father is shown through this to be eating him alive and preventing him from progressing. During the cinematic battle of the season, Deku is fighting and isn't slated to win. However, because of his self-imposed hindrance, Todoroki begins to slow down and begins to lose. Deku sees this window and decides, instead of winning, that it is more important to help Todoroki emotionally. They have a heart-to-heart, and Todoroki realizes that his power is his, not his father's. He then uses his flames for the first time in the series and makes a big step towards overcoming this problem. The next fight, however, he refuses to use his flames and loses. I love My Hero Academia because it does such a good job of writing realistic and grounded characters who act like real-life people. In life, if I experience a traumatic event and it changes my way of thinking or acting, and I have a therapy session, that doesn't make the trauma go away or immediately change my behavior. Growth is a journey, not a level up. I think that Helluva Boss is trying to take this approach and failing. The difference between Todoroki and Blitz is that despite not immediately getting better, he proceeds to improve and grow and learn each time we see him on screen. We see his progress. Blitz isn't progressing the way I think the writers think he is. So, now I'd like to highlight why he isn't growing. For this, I'm going to use another show, Steven Universe. To clarify, I do not like this show, but I used to really love it. Steven Universe is insanely similar to Helluva Boss. Both are shows focused on LGBTQ+ relationships with an amazing art style, beautiful music, and a diverse cast of characters who are super unique and memorable. Both shows have an insane room for world building and a deep lore. However, the reason I don't like Steven Universe is ultimately because of its writing and its main character, Steven. At the beginning of the series, he is this innocent young child who is so incredibly well-intentioned and loving, but he makes very selfish decisions. Like Blitz, he has a character flaw. As the series progresses, he never grows out of this. The base show ends, and this concept is never addressed. The first time his actions were highlighted seriously as a problem was in the future movie. After he fights Spinel, he talks her down, and he selfishly leaves her alone again. He got to walk away the child hero and savior because he talked her down using promises he clearly was not going to follow through with. She is painted as the bad guy despite Steven's obviously selfish actions, leaving her hanging. Thankfully, she and the Crystal Gems call him on this and encourage him to change his behavior. So now we have these two similar shows with characters facing the same problems. So what is the underlying problem? To find it, we're looking at the gap again. Steven Universe was another show that had insane potential but never ended up living up to it, in my opinion. The reason that I think this happened is because of a lack of planning on the creative side. Rebecca Sugar has admitted or hinted at in interviews that when the show started, she didn't have a concrete ending or plan in mind. She has also admitted in an interview that her ending was taken from a fan theory that she really liked. That style of writing is one that is incredibly lazy and highlights our problem in both shows. How are these characters supposed to grow and mature in meaningful ways when there is no end goal for them? To be honest, I don't think there is any reality where Helluva Boss continues the way that it is and doesn't end poorly. Again, I'd like to say that this is speculation on my end. I don't know whether or not Vivzy and her team have a plan in mind for these characters and story, but gosh, do I hope they do. I so desperately want to be proven wrong in this manner, but I don't think I will be. If anyone on the creative team for Helluva Boss is watching this, please, I implore you to take time away from the series and to rework the plot and the direction these characters are going. Establish their end goal and final iteration. Please plan things out. That, I feel, will fix the problems in the series of repetitive emotional beats, plot holes, and a lack of growth or progression. I know that Blitz and Stolas finally got together, but it doesn't feel like they've addressed any of the trauma or conflicts yet that they have experienced in their past, and it doesn't feel like they've changed fundamentally as characters since the pilot or shortly after, because Stolas' role was greatly changed. Again, I want to clarify that these are all my speculations and opinions on this show. In no way, shape, or form do I claim to be entirely correct on the subjects of these shows. These are my opinions and views. If you disagree with me, please civilly discuss it with me in the comments, and I'd love to hear about your thoughts, and I genuinely hope that this video does some good for the community. At the end of the day, I do think that Helluva Boss has been a net positive for the creative space on the internet. It has inspired and blazed the way for other indie animation projects to come about, some of which I really, really love. I'll continue to watch and support this series because I am in love with the characters and their creators. The talent that this crew possesses is absolutely beyond bonkers, and I'm thoroughly excited to see what they make next. I do think that Vivzie has been under a lot of pressure because of the size and intensity of her community, so I'd like to remind everyone that making art is a hard thing because it will be judged. Making art is a hard thing because it is unique to you. Making art is hard because it will never be perfect.
This is Stolas of the Ars Goetia. If you like that, subscribe to Phils-a-mek, my owlets. See you in hell!